Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Before we jump into our analysis on the NASDAQ that has just opened here, just want to draw your attention to the risk disclaimer at the bottom of the stream. Trading futures is risky. Trading any financial instrument is risky. Nothing that you see on this stream should be misconstrued as financial advice. The stream also is about 10 to 15 seconds behind live. It's variable, so anything that you see me saying or doing on stream has already happened in the past. So with that out of the way, good morning. The NASDAQ popped here around 7:30. One of our members in the Discord was kind enough to put an article out from the Treasury about a kind of buyback for longer term, I believe, bonds and other instruments. So the NASDAQ is rallying a bit as it looks like the government is potentially stepping in to do a bit more aggressive monetary policy. Whether that sticks, I don't know, but that looks like that's what the reaction was early this morning. Yesterday, the NASDAQ sold off pretty heavy. I think we ended up down almost 2%. They made new lows in the overnight. Took a couple of stabs at them, and on the second try of making new lows, we rallied up, and now we are back up to around 29,700 here. We got a little exhaustion here on this move from the morning. In terms of where we're sitting in the range from yesterday, the opening range high from yesterday for RTH is about another like 70 points higher than this. My first point of reference, if we're going to continue this rally up, is this zone mixed with the midpoint from yesterday's session around 800. I'm going to kind of use that as my kind of pivot for today's session. If we are below it and coming up to it, I might be interested in fading that or taking a short depending on how we respond there. If we get above it and start using it as support, I think 30K becomes a very likely target to the upside if we have that kind of momentum. If we look at a higher time frame, the NASDAQ basically, I would call this pretty much a failed breakout above this 3065 level that we broke last week. We spent just a little time up there before giving it all back Monday and Tuesday. I think it still becomes kind of a target that if we're going to end up rolling over further, they might want to come back up and test that level one more time. So we'll see what kind of momentum buyers have today. In terms of this week so far for me, if you guys watch the stream on Monday, just all the way back up here, I was attempting to take some trades, I believe. Let's see if I can find where this was. Oh, goodness. Yes, I believe it was this level that I was kind of working off of for the day. I was saying that I wanted to be long if we got above it. I did get long once and then tried one more time, got stopped both times. Traded yesterday, was just a little bit too early. It was also really volatile yesterday. So I took a couple of stops yesterday as well. Ended up getting one winning trade at the end to kind of get back to break even, which I've talked about before is why I like trading like 3-to-1 risk to reward, is that I can take a bit of damage. And if one of the trades hits, then I'm at least kind of back to break even. But yesterday was a really tricky session to trade. It was really volatile and pretty fast. So we'll kind of keep an eye on. So far this morning, I think looks to be kind of the same flavor. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Right now, the NASDAQ is trying to hold. This is like an absorption level from yesterday that we kind of rotated around multiple times, and then we got above it this morning on the news pop, and now we've held it on a pullback once, and looks like we're getting ready to test it again. So if we look at what equities are doing this morning, always like to take a look and see. Let's go look at the S&P's top 500 holdings. So Nvidia is up just a tiny bit, not even 1%. Home Depot, of all things, is leading the way, is up a couple percent. Everything else is either flat. On the red side, Intel is down 1%. JP Morgan is down 1%, and the rest of it is all flat / mildly red-ish. So Nothing really, none of the big mega caps are moving around a bunch just yet. And let's see if there's anything else. AMD is down about 1%. So everything else is mostly Dow stocks and mostly flat. So not not a great look in my opinion for the Nasdaq popping like it has, and you don't really see any mega caps following along. Nvidia is the closest to being up over 1%, and it's only up 0.75% right now. So that's kind of what's going on there. If we start to roll back over, I think the point of control from the overnight session down at 9, uh, like 550-ish is probably the most likely of targets. If I had to guess, that would be giving back the whole pop. So if the market decides that it doesn't care for that news or doesn't weight that news super heavily, I think that's where we make a run to. If you haven't watched the stream before, I wait for the 30-minute opening range to get set before I start taking position. That's just a hard rule of my own. In the past, when I haven't followed that rule, I usually just lost a bunch of money before before the 30-minute opening range got set and kind of took myself out of the game. I like to use the first 30 minutes to gauge what the volatility is going to be like, what levels is the market respecting, because the overnight session is, that's the Asia session and the London session, and sometimes U.S. traders, as we come into RTH here in the U.S., just don't agree with whatever those two sessions did overnight. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but I like to take the first 30 minutes to see, are they in agreement, or do they just, take advantage of this pop in the morning to take profit, which is what looks like is what's happening right now. Um, I will probably continue to look for shorts as long as we are below the midpoint from yesterday. If we're going to go to the downside, I think a natural place to look for a potential bounce is below the previous day's low, out of value, and there's this imbalance, this buy imbalance from the overnight down at 480 would be kind of my first interest level of potentially buying a dip or some kind of reaction down there. If we get through the low from the overnight, further down, it's not so pretty for the NASDAQ really. So we bounced pretty hard off of this level, this like swing low from last week. It was actually last week's low. We bounced off of a little bit yesterday. And then if we get through here, I think this spike low from August 6th, so a couple weeks ago, becomes pretty like a pretty defined target. That's down at 29,240. As we start to drift back into here, you don't really start to get a lot of structure until 29K. I don't know that they're going to have that kind of juice today, but the structure for the Nasdaq from its breakout is not great. You don't start to get into a bunch of volume. Let's compress this just a little bit. Like you can just kind of see that like this is a bunch of volume here, but I think 29K becomes kind of the magnet to the downside. So this is a lot of failures for the NASDAQ above 30K. We had a nice breakout from it on last week, and they got above the 3065 level that they couldn't get through for multiple months at a time. We spent a little bit of time above 30K. You can see we actually put in a decent amount of volume between last week and the early part of this week before we rolled over. But I would be, as a buyer, I would continue to be concerned the longer that we spend and the more times that we reject 30K. It's either best case scenario, if that continues to happen, we kind of go sideways in tech. Worst case scenario, I think we start to roll over a bit. Just the more times that you reject a level, and they had rejected 3065 quite a few times before we broke out of it last week, and then we got above it, and now got rejected again. So not a real good look. That level continues to be a level that, at least maybe psychologically as well as technically now, is being defended by sellers. So if you're new to the stream, feel free to hop in chat, say hi, hit the like button. It helps the stream. We're still working on building this community, getting more people in here. So we appreciate you guys being here this morning. already almost a 200 point opening range, so volatility will be on the higher side. Monday session that I traded was just was really a weird session in my opinion. Like the volatility was really pretty low. We just kind of did this like slow motion sell off and then just kind of never really bounced. And then as it got to the overnight session, the Korean stock market sold off and the Nasdaq followed. So that continues to be a theme, is that when the Korean stock market tends to be selling pretty heavy, the Nasdaq so far this year has been following along with that pattern. So currently below the mid of this session, headed back towards the Globex open and previous day's close right here. It's probably just going to make a beeline for the point of control, which is what I said whenever we got underneath this absorption level here. They're basically at it right now. So good call from one of our members this morning who said, I don't know how he noted that the pop from this was due to the government buyback news. And he said, in his opinion, he wasn't sure how much the market would actually care about it. And turns out that maybe they don't care about it so much. So buyers step in, you have a buy and balance that just popped up here at 575-ish. So I was still trading 3 M and Q on Monday and yesterday, but I've taken a few stops in a row across those days. If we're really volatile, which right now would put in a 200 point range, opening range already, I might size down to two contracts just because one, because volatile, and two, I've just kind of been on my off foot for the few trades that I've put on this week. So we definitely have enough range that I can probably still stretch for 3-1, but just might reduce the overall contract size risk. Nice little bounce from the buyers there. Yeah, we're trading pretty fast so far. The one thing that was kind of the tell, and I said it on stream on Monday, was that the Nasdaq and basically ES and the Dow were all basically flat, just like mildly red on Monday in the morning session. But the VIX was like up 4 or 5%. That was definitely like a heads up that there was some selling inbound, but it took quite a while. It took like a decent part of that morning session for the equities to sort of catch up to what the VIX was doing. So just I don't do like technical analysis on the VIX, but I will pay attention to kind of where it's at overall. So this morning everything is green, and the and the VIX is down 3.5% right now. But everything is just barely green. ES is, quote, leading the way, up about 1/3%, and the Dow is up about 1/3%. Bitcoin up 0.5%. Silver and gold are both up. Almost, gold is up over 2%. So typically, I mean, this year's been a little weird for metals, but typically when metals are up, equities are not up as well. So remains to be seen whether this pop in the NASDAQ continues to hold. Also, if you missed it, we have a new Rewind the Tape episode out. We have episode 2 is out now. You can find that on our channel page. I will link it in the chat here in just a few. We go over one of the trades, I think Friday's trade from last week in greater detail. That was a trade that ultimately worked, was profitable, but I was a little bit early too. Kind of got saved by a little cluster of sellers that were sitting right in front of my stop. But we talk about that and look at how that execution could have been better. So if that's something you're interested in, that is available on our channel. And if you haven't watched episode 1, that one should be living right next to it. So right back to this buy and balance here. Sellers able to hold a lower high at like 630. And I wasn't looking to short this because it's pre-opening range, but this is kind of the retest that I like to see here. You had one test, two test, third test, and then sell. Whoa, there's some news of some kind. Head on a swivel there. We just like lost all liquidity when that dropped. Sellers are still present and accounted for. So that's going to be almost a full, these are hourly candles, and that's a full, almost a full give back of that hourly pop. So we're going to have quite a wide opening range. So I'm going to go ahead and put my contracts at 2 instead of 3. They might get the low with that kind of momentum. Wow. Yeah, there's some kind of news that just came out. So if you're trading, just note that the liquidity is going to be really bad for a few moments. See if I can track down what it was. If anybody else sees what it was, you're welcome to throw that in chat. I don't have a dedicated news feed up because I just find it to be super noisy. So I wouldn't be trading this pre-opening range anyway, but like uh that wasn't an ideal reaction to that 483 level that I was like, oh, maybe that's a dip buy. But you know, one of the things that I think is like really tricky as a newer trader, and even for myself now, is that uh, you're saying, let's say you're like, price is hanging out up here, right? And you're like, I want to buy this level, right? And then we get some kind of news drop and we do that level of velocity into that level. Uh, I would say that your like the context around buying that level has changed due to whatever the news event is. So yeah, it's trading around this level, but the market probably doesn't care as much at the moment. Like you've got a bunch of algorithms and other people potentially offsides in a very fast move. So typically want to let, in my opinion, want to let things settle in, even if you're looking at what looks to be a really great level. Because if there's news out and it's news that the market doesn't like, which looks like that's what this is, um, they don't give a shit about your level. Oh, there goes the overnight low. Very, 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 very fast. You're actually seeing sellers stack and follow price down. People trying to get in or out. My guess is more out at the moment. Scooting over to a higher time frame, that is a very ugly and angry hourly candle. I think that this 29,240 level starts to become a very obvious target there. There's a bit of exhaustion from the sellers there right at the low, but you're also getting a lot of volume being done right here, which is not what you want to see. Not what you want to see if you're a buyer who wants this to go back up. You're seeing some larger buyers try to step back in here, so things were a little wild before, and that whatever that was is going to make this even more wild. So size down and put your cowboy hats on. If you don't like volatility, probably today is not going to be the session for you. That is 350 points for an opening range so far, and they have another 8 minutes to work this lower if they want to. I may need to size down and increase size of stop as well. Typically, I use around a 20-point stop. May need to move that to a 30 just so that I don't get wicked out in this volatility. I poked my head onto X. I didn't see anything. I feel like I still call it Twitter about 90% of the time. I wonder how much that infuriates Elon Musk. It's going to take a generation of people to not remember that it was called Twitter. I mean, imagine if they renamed Instagram, right? Like it's just such a like staple of a name. Buyers struggling with this imbalance area. It's 483. So that really big buy imbalance right there. But she is a wild one right now. They also put in a pretty big sell imbalance here. That's this one at like negative 140 at around 470. So there's a little bit of traffic here. There's also this delta zone from that really fast sell-off. So and if you're somebody that likes to trade volatility, looks like there's plenty to be served. My data feed is actually hanging here. We'll see if it comes back to life. Sometimes rhythmic in particular uh, gets a little bit hung during some of these fast moves. So all sorts of fun things can happen when we're trading this fast. But if you don't like volatility, I can already tell you that today's session is not going to be of your flavor. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. I know people that thrive very well in low volatility environments, and there is nothing wrong with that. I would say what is wrong with it is that if you know that you don't trade a high volatility environment well, and you still try, if you want to try with smaller size, no one's stopping you. But I would say, know your environment. This is a little. I like volatility. This is a little much for me, but I'm here. You guys can watch me attempt to click buttons in the right direction. I have about 5 minutes still until this opening range gets set. And this is what I mean for, at least for myself, of watching the first 30 minutes. Like, if, I decided to start jumping into trades after this bounced off of this 660 level, I'd be like, oh, that's bullish, right? We had this big up move up near the overnight high. But yeah, one of you just put in chat to calm down a little bit. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I mean, it's almost untouchable at the moment by how I trade. So it's gotta start establishing some areas that, buyers or sellers want to try to defend. But as it sits right now, she's too fast. I still haven't seen whatever this news reaction was. My feed on X is full of stuff about Moderna of all things. Throwback to COVID level stocks. I guess they finally had a some kind of positive phase 3 study for their cancer vaccine. But that stock has been, I mean, that stock was like $500 or $600 at the peak of COVID. I think it traded as low as like $30 since then. So I don't always agree with, like, some of these like longer term sort of investment ideas that are like, you should just hold it forever. It'll come back. Mm, will it though? Or could you just stop out and lose whatever that amount was and sit on the sidelines until until conditions improve? If you've were holding since COVID, you've been holding that stock for 6 years. And basically, if you bought any time after the like shutdown, you have probably been pretty significantly underwater. Same thing for like Zoom. If you bought Zoom somewhere near the peak, like that I'm not sure that stock will ever trade that high again. So starting to see a little bit of absorption from sellers here. Buyers are trying to get back up to this 500 level and struggling. Wow, that is just a insane set of moves. I'm not even watching it, and like I'm not watching it on the DOM because I probably almost can't keep it on my screen here. But like that move right there was 84. So call that a 30-point move that then just did 60 points in the other direction in about 30 seconds. I know all of you are responsible individuals, but I always just encourage people to be cautious when it's doing this. you can be right and still be very wrong just because of the way that it's ping-ponging around like that. So far, I think this imbalance here is gonna be the spot. Just saw it reject it right there. We just got set the opening range, so overall the opening range is, call it 406 to 742. So yeah, just about 350-ish points. Just a lot of order flow traffic here. Struggling to get back over this level. Pretty early for me to take a position, but they really are having a hard time getting this back above 483. This big order at 90 that I would prefer to see filled if I'm going to try to short 83 first. And they pulled that 100 lot order. And they may not show me 483 again. If I get short here, I'll be looking for new lows. Stop will be 513, so basically right above these, around these tops here, back below. I believe that's the previous day's low. All right, I'm short there. 483. Stop is at 513. Looking for new session lows. So wider stop, one less contract than I typically trade in this account. So risking the same dollar amount, but just less contracts. I'm actually not going to put a bid out yet. I want to see how it breaks the low down there if we get there. First, we have to get through this 460 area, which they've held multiple times. And knocking on the door here. And broke that. We get below 430, I'm going to put my stop to break even. That was close. What did that get to? 36. I just had to say 430, huh? They're like at 434. So trying to bounce that from. There's a sell imbalance there. All right, there's 430. So stop is to break even here. And canceling my upper stop. Because I have this this level here at 240, which I think is a kind of an obvious target, I'm going to take one off actually right here at the low and stop to break even. So I've got a runner here. I'm going to try to follow this down that far. I don't know if we'll get there, but it's about 150 points away, making new lows here. So we'll be a profitable trade no matter what. Entry was okay. They popped it. Just if I hadn't been using a 30-point stop, I would have been stopped. But I sized down to 2 contracts instead of 3 and bumped my stop from 20 points to 30 points. So that is, in my opinion, how you should manage volatility like this. Don't don't come in here like looking with like dollar signs in your eyes about how much you can make. You should be looking at the dollar signs of what can you lose in this kind of volatility. So this level here is, we'll call it 245. So I'm looking for 250-ish. Don't know if we can get that far, but I'm okay with where this is at. Yeah, I mean you have to. You have to. It's a fool's errand to try to maintain size and a 20-point stop in this kind of volatility. Even a 30-point was probably a little tight, but I wanted to have multiple contracts on so that I could keep a runner for this further target. And I mean, I would also not be surprised if it comes back to try to find my stop. So, but that target looks pretty obvious to me on a higher time frame, and we have quite a bit of momentum to the downside. So I think it's worth the risk. If they put in a higher low, or sorry, a lower high here on this move, then I'll move my stop to just above that once they get away from it. But if they just bid it straight back up into value, they're just going to get my stop. Currently rejected that sell imbalance they put in on the way down. Also, if you guys are watching and haven't hit the like button yet, feel free to do so. Helps out the stream. So the NASDAQ went from about 0.75% up, almost 1% up, to now being down 0.5%. So sellers really doing the thing here. This is technically a lower high, but I need to let price get further away from this before I move my stop down. Like if we get to, let's call it 330. I'm just going to stick with the 30s today. If we get to like 330, then my stop will go down here to 420. We'll lock in some, but otherwise I'm just going to hold it. The Dow and ES are both still green, so this is very concentrated tech selling at the moment. So if ES and the Dow don't catch down, this will probably stop me out on my runner. I try to get back into value here. Looks like they might come find my stop in a hurry. Need sellers to step in somewhere. Just not going to be able to hold this to the place that I wanted to hold this. But no regrets if they do stop me. They like that target to me sticks out like a sore thumb, but they are coming back up in a hurry. They're probably coming right back to this imbalance, which is going to be my stop. Come on, sellers, defend yourself here. There's some pretty aggressive buying there. Sellers probably need to get this back below 420 here pretty quick, or it's gonna, I think. It's not particularly how I like them to put in a lower high there. Only like 20 points away from my position. Was hoping that was a little bit lower so I could lock in more profit, but I'm gonna try to bounce right off that sell imbalance level. I don't like that the Dow is basically trying to make new highs here, and ES is still not made a new low off of this. Uh, This is very, very concentrated tech selling. So I'm gonna go ahead and move my stop. It's like barely into profit, but just above uh, this lower high here. So it's like the Dow and ES have plenty of room to catch down if they catch the same sell bug that the Nasdaq has right now, but uh, I don't love I don't love that. I like to see all the indexes being supportive of the direction that I am positioned in. And it is still extremely volatile. Like that bounce right there. That was 85. It was almost a 50-point bounce across two 500 volt candles and then reversed the whole part, almost the whole part of it there. So back below the opening range low for the Nasdaq. Kind of struggling with this sell imbalance down here and back above it for now. Just looking at where we're trading on this higher time frame. So we're not quite into the wick. We got barely into the wick of this candle from August 6th on the low, but now we're kind of trading back into the body of it. So I'm just willing to hold and, take this, uh, take a stop in profit. I'm basically at this point not even risking anything. I guess I'm risking unrealized. So I'm risking about what a normal stop would be for a potential another like 150 points. I still didn't see any headlines for what this sort of faster vertical move down and loss of liquidity was, but market seems to be taking that at least mildly seriously. At least the Nasdaq is. doing a decent amount of volume down here. Yeah, it looks like they'll find my stop here. The other reason I have my stop where it is that I think if they trade 73, they're just going to get back to 83 where the imbalance is. So just save myself a handful of points. All right, stopped there. Small winner. Basically made 1R. Was that uh was that about 3R for the whole position that I took 1 off at? So yep, and they traded 83. I feel justified about where my stop was. And they're speeding up again. Getting stuck at the same level. Gonna give this a minute. Like tempted to put back on the same runner, but I think it needs to trade for a minute. Previous day's low is about another 25 to 30 points higher than this. So they might want to go test that first. So no regrets there in terms of like not taking the runner off. Um, just because I think that when you start to get into these sort of like candles, like especially on the hourly chart, there are these very obvious like out in space spikes. Like that was this one from last week's low as well that they took out. And when we have momentum going down in that direction, I just find it to be a pretty reliable target. Didn't work this time, but that's kind of my thesis there. But at the end of the day, call it risking about one more. I risked profit rather than actually risking capital there. So risked unrealized gains. So risking like $100 or whatever it would be, 50 points ish, right, on M and Q to potentially make another 150. So it's basically doing 3 to 1 again. So I'll take that trade most times. Still annoyed they got my runner, but not only did they get my runner, but they got it a lot higher. So getting rejected just below the previous day's low, kind of fighting with this absorption level that we shorted off of earlier. Even getting stopped on that runner, that was one of the better trades that I put on this week. I was just way too early yesterday. My timing was terrible. Just grateful to the NASDAQ gods to give me a winner a little bit later in the session to recover a couple of stops, but generally timing was off. I was just like on the wrong foot yesterday all day. So like once I got it back to like just a very small red day, I was like, I'm turning it off. So now they're going to retest this imbalance level from the top side. Yeah, but now using 83 or trying to use 83 as support. I'll zoom this out a bit to see where we want to. So fighting with these lows from the overnight and the previous day's low is all right here at like 514, 520-ish. Even though I wasn't ready to flip long there, like it always gives me some extra validation that the imbalance level that I was shorting off of and took a nice short trade off of, and then they get it back above and then use it as support. I'm like, yeah, they see what I'm looking at. To the upside here, if buyers continue to push, you've got the previous day's close and the midline all and the Globex Open all stacked here at like between 560 and 570 basically. So it's actually probably a tricky trade to get into just because they whipsawed it around this sell imbalance down here at 415, but ultimately gave it enough tests, and once they got above it, we just squeezed. One of my friends has been looking for a job in tech for a while. He's I think I'm not sure exactly what he would call his title, but I would call him a AI engineer. He's been coding for a long time and really been heavy in the AI space for probably the last 3 or 4 years. So he's got a skill set that is highly desirable. But he's been interviewing for probably the last like I don't know 2 or 3 months, trying to find a position that he really likes and cares about, so that he doesn't have to bounce around. But he just texted me and said that he got an offer, and he's like, I'm going to a coffee shop to order a fancy drink and think about how I'm going to spend all of this offer money. So a little bit of blow off frustration, I think, at the whole process. He was doing like I think he's been averaging like 5 or 6 interviews a week for like the last 3 months. So I think he's pretty over the process. Nice rally from the buyers there. Not going to step in front of this. Might also get really choppy now. I mean, this drop from, like 845 into when the opening range got set felt very news driven. Like my depth of market froze, which is indicative of, I can't remember what it's called. It's just velocity logic on the NASDAQ, which is basically like if it moves too fast, they have algorithms that will basically pause all the orders for like a handful of seconds until everything can kind of get realigned on the spreads and like try to like match orders to other orders. And so if you ever are trading the Nasdaq and you see your depth of market like lock up briefly, that's usually what's going on. So it's actually a real thing. Like it's not just locking up for you, it's locking up for everyone. But that's usually indicative of a news drop or a tweet or somebody said something. uh, so the market cared about it for about 30 minutes, enough for me to take a small winner, and now has almost fully reversed. I think basically fully reversed the velocity logic event. Little weakness on the push for the buyers there. That's what that little orb is. There's not much in the way of this up move if they continue to have momentum. You have a little bit of shelf built right at the edge of value, which corresponds to this lower high that we put in when we sold off the open. And then you have this absorption level, which is from yesterday. So they held a support once. So actually ended up being a better move to the upside. I took the short, which got plenty of points for the short, but way more points from the long side had you bought the higher low there. Honestly, I think I said it out loud, but I think the tell for me down here was when I looked at the Dow and ES. Like the Dow was basically trying to make new highs when NQ was down there, and ES hadn't made new lows. So, you know, a lot of times I think it's like just because of the way all the indexes are structured, it's really hard for one index to sell off, dramatically. It's hard for the Nasdaq to be like down 2% and the S&P still be up or only mildly red. So whenever I saw that, I was like, ooh, like I'm gonna hold the position because I think the risk to reward is worth it, but I would have wanted to see like the Dow trying to at least be in its mid range or like trying to make new lows, or same for ES, and they weren't doing it. So I'm probably not interested in touching this until we get back above 640. If we get above 640, I would be looking at a potential reoffer of that level, like 640 to 660 in this range, depending on how much momentum we get up there with. If they're going to pull back from the long side, I mean, I think this same 483 level is the one that I would look at for a potential bounce. They already bounced it off at once. But everything in between that is just going to be noise for me. I think I'm still red on the week by like 1.5 or 2 R ish. So like nothing catastrophic, but because I held that runner for this trade and didn't take it off at the lows or at first target, uh, this ended up being just like a 1R, a little better than a 1R trade. Obviously, like it looks in hindsight, it's like, oh, definitely should have taken that off down there. But, if we were now trading down here at like 300, only like 50 points away from the spike low that I wanted to see if they would get to, I'd be really annoyed with myself. So buyers taking a little breather here right at the midline. ES is trying to push new highs, trying to get back to the high from the pre-market that it got to based off of that news drop about buybacks. And the Dow just made new intraday highs. So quite a bit of buying going on. The Nasdaq is the weakest of the bunch, but The NASDAQ is basically break even. It's just sitting down like 20 points on the day. I will tell you that like sometimes I'm able to gather some uh, insight into kind of like what the overall market is doing based on like what's up or down, but it is a weird mix right now. So the Nasdaq is flat. ES and YM are up about 0.5%. Bitcoin is up 1.25%. Silver and gold are both up over 2.5%. The VIX is down 4%. Oil is up 1%. Like I don't know what people are buying this morning. Bonds are all up 1.5% too. Just kind of a chaotic mix of what's getting bought and sold this morning. I mean, bonds are probably up on the buyback news, would be my guess. So if they think there's going to be supportive monetary policy, but that's outside my, like right at the edges of my financial literacy. And for intraday trading, you really don't need to know a lot of that. You can gather a little bit of information, but most of the things for those particular assets are going to take, uh, like they're just going to, like all of those are just going to be longer horizon style trades. Somebody asked me the other day if I use fibs on here, and I don't use fibs. I use the 50%, like the midline for the overall session, but none of the other, whatever they are, the 23, there's like, I can't remember all of them, but I feel like fibs are kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you draw enough lines, like I think the midway point I think is a real level that the market pays attention to, but I actually don't know that the 50% is actually a fib level. It just gets thrown in with fib levels. Um, but I'm of the mind of like, if you're gonna throw a whole bunch of lines on a chart, you know, the market will probably trade some of them eventually. But I just, as somebody who's an order flow trader, I'm looking at structural reasons like the lines that ScalperIQ is drawing on the chart here for our imbalance levels are based around actual order flow anomalies. So while if you were to just draw, your fibs based on this level, based on this chart, yeah, maybe they line up with certain things. And I think if you use fibs, and they, you draw them and they happen to line up with something else structurally, and like that helps you kind of like orient yourself in space, then I think that's great. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, initial balance 50. I don't know that I've ever actually looked at that one in particular. To be honest, I don't even know that is initial balance just for the first 30 minutes, or like how are you defining the IB? Or is that also like a depends on who you ask type question? First hour. Okay, good to know. They couldn't have made it simple and just made it go with the 30-minute opening range. They're like, all right, now you have to keep track of something on the hourly as well. Sellers trying to defend this midline here, and they are looking like they might lose it here in a second. That is a very large bubble there, just showing that that push was a lot of negative delta at the end of that candle. So at least temporary weakness there, but looks like buyers don't care. I think the higher this goes, the harder this session gets to trade, to be quite honest with you. Like they've taken back almost half the overall drop, getting above the 50% retracement. And I think when that starts to happen, a lot of times it wants to take back more than that. So I wouldn't be fading this. I wouldn't even be looking to fade this until we get back above like 650 to 660 and see if we start interacting with this lower high here and this absorption level from yesterday. And I was looking for a pullback as deep as this 483 level here, and so it didn't pull back far enough for me to want to get in long. Also, I see some new people joining. Welcome to the channel. Feel free to say hi, jump in chat. Let us know what you're trading this morning. So they've taken back the whole. We saw this like velocity logic event at 8:45. They're completely above where that took place. So some type of news or something or somebody said something hit the wire at like 8:50 Central Time, and we basically put in new lows, set the opening range low, popped to the previous day's low, and rolled over. And now the market has decided that it doesn't really care about whatever news came out because we have reversed the entirety of that move. So if you're just joining us, I was short at this 483 imbalance as we got down here and underneath it. I took one off down around 400, and then I had a runner on that I kind of trailed, and they ultimately got it like 10 or 15 points in profit. Was looking for a higher time frame level. I thought they might roll it over to the spike low from a couple weeks ago, down at 250. So I was willing to hold a runner for that long, but obviously we are going the other direction right now in a hurry. So got stopped on my runner in profit, and so ended up making a little bit better than 1R, but didn't get my full target. All right, I'm going to scroll my depth of market up to the next place that I would like to look at to potentially interact with this rocket ship. The other indexes are a lot stronger right now, so this could be an instance where like ES just made new intraday highs. The Dow is up near its high, so it could be one of those things of the NASDAQ kind of like playing catch up to those other couple indexes. And we really didn't see those other two sell off in uh, the same way that NQ did. So it makes for a tricky environment when the indexes are going in opposite directions. And we've seen a lot of that this year as like, the AI story has become kind of the story of the NASDAQ. And so I think that, uh, as that plays out, the discrepancy between what moves the NASDAQ and like what's moving the Dow, and then ES getting kind of like caught in between, has just kind of like grown. I had just put in our Discord that I really don't like these. You're right, and SpaceX cheating its way into. uh, if my friend Wags is watching, sorry, we're not talking shit on SpaceX, but uh, yeah, that was a whole deal. I don't know how much it's actually like played out or mattered. SpaceX getting into the Nasdaq a lot quicker than names are typically added, given how recent its IPO was, but it's hard to know like the mechanics behind all of that. Also, I've mentioned this a couple times on stream, but I keep getting so many advertisements from NinjaTrader about single stock futures. And I haven't looked in a couple of weeks, but the last couple times that I've looked, the volume has been just like untradably atrocious, like 50 contracts traded a day, which you just can't and shouldn't touch. Uh, so I think they're pushing them. I don't know how much money or like what the maintenance level is for like the CME, which is like the governing body for futures. I don't know if they're losing money on that. Seems like they would have to have some level of, I don't know, that's like more infrastructure. It's like more everything to be offering those. So I can't imagine that they're too thrilled about how that launch has gone. Seems like it was a bit obscure in turn. Like I only heard it from someone else in my Discord, and then I eventually saw like one advertisement from the CME that they were doing single stock futures, but uh, I don't know that they did a very good job of like advertising that those are a thing. I'm really excited for the product. Like if they can get volume going on those names, I would love to trade some single stock futures. It'd be like another, something else to look at. And our scalper IQ studies, in theory, should work if there's enough volume. The reason that you can't use our studies on stocks is because stocks are not a centralized exchange. So your volume and your delta just gets spread out across dark pools and different exchanges, and it's not one cohesive story. While if you're trading futures, like we're trading the Nasdaq here, everybody is looking at the same numbers, the same bids and offers, and so you can get a cohesive story about volume and aggression. But And also, the feeds are all supposed to be the same, but there are just still going to be discrepancies. Like the chance of me having negative 124 at this exact price here and someone else, even on the same platform, on the same feed, having that exact thing, like I think is unlikely. So buyers got pretty smacked there right at the edge of value and right in front of these lower highs. Still looking a little bit higher for a potential reoffer. So I like it a little bit more since they rejected this area here. So like there are some sellers present. If we can get right back above and start to struggle with this like 660-ish level, which is from yesterday. And it's also this like higher low that they attempted to put in before they sold off this morning. So the only thing I don't like about it is like there's a few gaps in the profile here, but it's a little flat all the way up. Like you don't have like a sort of a distinct, like it's just kind of a messy profile up here. So might not take too much for buyers to sort of like run that through. Seeing a big seller that just popped onto my screen there at 661 and a half. Just kind of the level that I'm looking at maybe fading for a scalp. If 660 sets up as a potential short, be looking back to the point of control, which is around like about 100 points lower. So I think risk to reward makes sense there. Probably still run like a 30-point stop. Not really interested in playing with this in the middle of this range. Pretty wild session already though. Like wide range, made new lows, and now have taken back over half of that. So volatility is still really high. So if you're a newer trader and you're not so sure about sizing, and if you do happen to be trading multiple contracts, which I would personally caution against when you're learning, but if you're on a prop firm and you have your risk managed and can handle that, then that's fine. But whenever the market is moving around a lot faster, would highly encourage you to, size down and widen your stops. You'll probably just be happier because of it. So like this morning, I typically am trading 3 M&Q in this account. And I just when I looked at the volatility and how fast we were moving around, I switched over to 2 and moved my stop from 20 points to 30 points. So I'm risking the same amount, but I'm giving one less contract and able to give price just a little bit more space since we're ping ponging around at pretty high velocity so far. And I think, let me look at my entry down here. So I was short at 483. Yeah, I would have been stopped to the tick had I been using a 20-point stop. So like I got in after it rejected a number of times here, and then they popped it one more time and then finally rolled it over. So that would have been a losing trade for me that I would have had to try to scramble to try to get back into. And I don't know that I would have because it basically like touched where my stop would have been and then just knifed back through the level that I was short at. So because the other half of that that you should look at is, like if volatility is low and we're not moving around a whole lot, you maybe should go in the other direction too. Because you need to be able, in my opinion, for how I trade, I want to get 3 reward versus 1 risk. So if I'm risking 20 points, I want to be getting 60. And if the market is moving really, really slow, it might be really hard to get 60 points. So then I might need to be looking at like a 15-point stop and trying to get 45 points. And if it volatility expands in the other direction, when I looked at how fast we were trading this morning and we put in like, a 400-point range, then I knew it wouldn't be terribly difficult for me uh to get 90 points for my 3 to 1. But like on a day where the range is really, really small, getting 90 points might be, a half or, 2/3 of the range. And you're asking a lot of your position to try to get 2/3 of an overall move. Also, if you're watching the channel and you haven't hit the like button yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you enjoy the content that you're watching. We're still working on building a nice community here. We have a link to our Discord also in the description of this live video. Our Discord is free to join. We do have a members only section, but we have an open discussion, so you can come in, ask questions about order flow, um, see what's up. We're a friendly bunch. Feel free to come hang out. I'm going to check to see if there's any other imbalance levels up here that might coincide with where I'm looking at. We've got some, most of them are clustered all down there, so nothing really higher. Just leave the one on, see if there's any from. There's one here that they're kind of struggling with from the overnight session, but I don't weight the ETH levels quite as much, except that the one that I did short off of down here at 483 was just like really, really big. It's like 500 contracts. But most of the time, the overnight imbalances are obviously a lot lower. Putting in another kind of like buyers getting a little absorbed here. So it's the same type of signal from yesterday. This is a study that looks for absorption. Um, it's still in development, so it's not available to anyone except for me right now. But we put these on the chart and I watch them trade for 3 or 4 weeks before I kind of decide if it's a worthwhile signal, um, and a tool worth handing to other people. So far, I might give it like a B. I feel like I give it an A plus for stylistically how it looks on the chart. I like the little solid line with the gradient. I think it looks pretty, but in terms of the signal itself, absorption is really hard to detect because you can kind of detect absorption happening for a little bit of time and then the market can just like do something completely different. So it may be one of those ones that's a bit like, like a lot of our studies, like it's informative, but it's definitely not like a signal to do something immediately. I see a few new people popping in here. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. Just watching the NASDAQ rally here off the lows, potentially looking for a reoffer in the 660-ish area, but not touching anything really inside of value here. To the downside, my reference would be this imbalance level, which we actually shorted earlier this morning, at like 483-ish. So took a quick short trade there, got one off in front of 400 and held a runner that they ended up stopping in profit on the way back up. And the reason that I was holding a runner was we have this spike low from the first week of August, and we kind of got down into the wick of it at the lows. And so I thought we had enough momentum to potentially get down there. And so, risking whatever it would be, 10 points for us to get down another 150 was definitely worth it. Didn't work, but I think was worth it. Seller's trying a little something here around 620. I don't like, I already said that I was interested in potentially fading this like 660 level. And I can't tell you how many times I say, oh, I'm going to, fade this level. And then it starts like struggling before the level that I'm looking at and taking a stop. And then it actually getting to my level and rejecting. So I will just sit on my hands till it gets to where I want it to go. Like I'm okay taking a stop if we set up short up here. I'm not okay because I wasn't looking at this level ahead of time, so I'm not okay with taking a stop here. I think there's like definitely some like psychology that goes into that. Like I'm perfectly okay taking a stop on a trade. Like it happens to me all the time. Happens to all of us all the time. But I want to take stops on my ideas and my analysis. I don't want to just take stops on random things. That's just demoralizing. If you haven't watched it yet, we have a new episode of Rewind the Tape out this week. So that's our weekly series where we take a look at a trade that I took during the live stream and break it down in greater detail, like what the order flow is showing, and um, just get a little more granular with it. So if you haven't watched that yet, that's on our channel. I can throw a link into the chat here in a minute if that's helpful. We have 2 episodes out now, so I think I'm hoping you guys can give me the feedback, but I'm hoping that if you're interested in order flow, that it gives you a bit more insight into the brain of someone who is trading order flow, which is me. So I'm gonna grab that link for you guys. And just dropped a link in chat, so feel free to take a look at that if you're interested. We've slowed down a lot here in the last like 20 to 30 minutes. Super, super, super volatile open, and then a very volatile move off the lows, and now we've kind of started to compress here. Another reason that I don't want to get involved here, I don't want to get involved in this main section of volume, just is indicative of like more chat, or sorry, more chop, not chat. I was reading the word chat and trying to say chop at the same time. Wow, Bitcoin is really taking off right now. It's the most I've seen it move in a while. It's up like almost 4% just in the last, like, got a push about 30 minutes ago, pushing new highs, just about to 67K. So I don't trade Bitcoin, but I use it as or have used it in the past as kind of a barometer for whether the market is interested in putting risk on. So as Bitcoin goes up in the past, typically you would see riskier assets, some of the AI names are more like, non-popular names would start to catch a bid when Bitcoin was. But uh, in the last like month or two, Bitcoin's volume has been so atrociously low that I really haven't weighted that. So just kind of noting that that's catching a bid. It's like right at the top of its range that it's been stuck in since June. NASDAQ finding some sellers right at the edge of value there. Would have liked for them to push that a little bit further so I could have attempted a short, but got stuck a little sooner. As we're pulling back, give me just 1 second, guys. I'm just going to go off camera for a minute, but the stream will stay up, so I'll be back in just a moment. And back. Had to acquire a beverage. So what do we have today? I'm always stocking the fridge with like new and interesting things. So this is kind of a favorite. Let's see if I can get this on the screen somewhere. It's called Hayo. I don't know. It's called a social tonic. It's pretty good. Peach mango. It's like some kind of lightly carbonated fruit juice, basically. I see a few new people popping in here. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. NASDAQ rotating around its point of control right now. We're not really interested in doing anything with it until it gets above 660 or it gets back to this 483 level that we were short at earlier in the session. Getting real choppy. Getting real choppy. So just like super volatile off the open, put in this giant range. And now for the last, call it half an hour to 45 minutes, we've traded 583, basically like a 50-point range. Ugh. Just flipping my contracts back to 2. Sometimes I forget, and then I'm like looking for entry and I'm like scrambling to like put the right contract size back on. If you have been watching the stream for the last like couple weeks, I've been trying to trade 3 M&Q. I'm in a 50K Lucid trading eval account. So I have a funded account with them, but I am doing an experiment to see if I can successfully size up, which I have not really ever done in my career. So it's actually gone okay for the last couple weeks. So I've been trading 3 M&Q, but it was so volatile off the open today that I reduced size down to 2 and just using a 10-point wider stop. So using like a 30-point stop instead of a 20-point stop. So up just a little bit on the session from our earlier short, but ended up being just a 1R trade. They got our runner, our short runner, as they push this back up above the previous day's low again. Wow, Bitcoin just went parabolic. Went from 67K to almost 70K in a 5-minute candle. Just gave a bunch of it back, but basically popped the top side of its, we'll call it its summer range. Some of that might have to do with, this is like also at the stretching at the edge of my sort of like financial literacy, but that might also have something to do with some of the monetary policy and buyback stuff this morning. So sometimes Bitcoin can react to, uh, I think the idea that like if the dollar continues to lose value, continue to have inflation, that somehow Bitcoin will be immune to that. I'm not an expert in that area by any means, but that's sometimes when you see why you see Bitcoin pop on news like that. Sort of like a barometer that the market, at least that particular, some people think that they disagree with or don't like the monetary policy that's getting put out. So Bitcoin trying to rally on its idea of being an alternative currency, which they've talked about since the beginning, and it's just like it's not stable. It's not stable enough. It's not stable enough for it to be an alternative. What do they call it? Like a store of value. Well, like your store of value is down like 60% from its high. So, I don't think that there's like just not what you want in a currency. You don't want your currency popping around 50, 40, 60, 70% at a time. You don't even really want it to go up that much. Just like stability is what you're looking for. Stability and reliability. Well, this went from a very kind of fun, exciting session to a really dull, gross session pretty quickly. Sometimes also, like I don't trade crypto, but sometimes like that rally in Bitcoin is like over the last like half an hour or so, and sometimes when it starts to rally and like gets to be more tradable because like the liquidity is up as more people are trading it, sometimes futures can slow down or get a little bit choppy. You start to lose some of the participants as they move over to whatever the newest shiny object that's trading is. I actually want to see when did this rally in Bitcoin start? First sort of like outsized candle was at 9:50 Central Time with a big pop around 10:05. Just want to see how much that coincided to the Nasdaq popping. So the Nasdaq started to pop a little earlier than that, like 9:30ish. So really Bitcoin's rally doesn't start until like this move. So I don't think they're really trading together. So NQ pulled back there and then immediately bid back up. But this price action was a lot more fun off of the open. And if you're just joining us, I was interested in looking at a potential re-offer or like a short up here near 660 if it's set up, kind of where this big offer is on my screen off to the right. But so far we haven't got that far, and I just don't want to play with it inside of this range. So points of reference for me are 483 down here, this imbalance from the overnight that we took a short off of earlier, and 660. Everything in the middle is just noise to me. I see some new people popping in here. Welcome to the stream. Now it's just getting volatile in like a really tight range. You're seeing these like spike, drop. Just like I call that take your money mode. So non-directional, but moving around a lot in a very tight space. You see like our studies will show when one side has control of like the aggression and the volume, and right now we're kind of sitting at neutral with like a little bit of a sell tent. So it's just indicative that we're really just chopping, trying to go sideways here. That's a little bit better from the sellers, but they got a long ways to go down before I'm interested in potentially buying a bounce. Pretty wild session to start, and then we've really cooled off here in the last half an hour or so. Now starting to get a little exciting from the sell side there. Sort of like from just a structural standpoint, I don't know if there's anything order flow related there, but 520 is a potential place for buyers to try to hold, but it's still kind of in the middle of value. But you have like this top here and this higher low here. I saw one of our members who might be in here say that she shorted near the top of ES this morning and then decided about a minute or two later that didn't like it and then it dropped about 20 points right after. I only laugh because we've all done it. We've all done it. And I'm guilty of it as well, so I am by no means going to point fingers, but I try my very, very best to if I put risk on, that I just leave it on and I either get stopped or I get to my take profit. But I understand it's not it's not easy, and also not everybody trades that way either. So, but yeah, it's really really frustrating when that happens. To me, that's like right up there, maybe more frustrating. I get more frustrated at myself when I do that, but right along the lines, I think my like the most frustrating thing that can happen in my for myself personally is getting stopped by like 1 or 2 points and then the market going in the direction that I was positioned for. That is like I usually have to take a breather if that happens because that's like want to tilt territory, especially if it happens multiple times. I usually like give it like 2 tries. Like if I get stopped and it goes right back to where my entry was, I might just like try again. But if it stops me twice that way, I'm just like hands off the wheel for a little bit. Take a take a deep breath and try to cool and try to cool off. I think there's like a proper time and place to jump back in. And I think it's also okay to just be like, well, I missed that move. It's like more important to manage risk than it is to be a part of every single move, in my opinion. So what I like about this pullback, even though it didn't quite get to the level that I was interested in fading it, which is like the 660 level, is that sellers have shown that they are willing to sell this down a little bit. So we got from like 630-ish to 550. So that's like almost 80 to 90 points, which is what I would need if I was going to be taking profit. So even though we haven't got an entry or like been able to see if 660 is going to be resistance up here, I think that bodes well for my position. If we just do this like sort of tight, super tight range, it makes me think that sellers aren't going to be aggressive enough to like, even if I get into position up here and it tries to sell, there might just not be enough sell oomph behind that. So I see we have a little bit of sell oomph, just a little bit. Buyers popping back up here in a hurry. It's a little V-shaped recovery there off the mid and the previous day's close. They held on that pullback. Just poking my head around equities, seeing what's popping. Seeing where some of the AI names are trading. A lot of stuff is fairly green. A lot of stuff is up. There's some of the more like volatile AI names like AMD and SanDisk and I would assume Seagate, yeah, are down today. So a lot of the like very like known AI names are down, including Intel, which is down 4%. Just gonna move this back up to my 650 level, which since I was last looking at it, the 650 offer has grown by 10 or 15 contracts. So I like seeing big sellers in the area that I'm interested in, particularly like I might be interested in fading something. And just to be clear, I'm interested in seeing what price does at this level. It doesn't mean that price is going to get there and I'm going to short it immediately. But NASDAQ has been the weakest of the three major indexes this morning. So if we get up here out of value where they haven't done a lot of volume, this is where they held a higher low. This is some absorption from yesterday, which they respected. So, but also very aware that if they get this up here and they start trading above it, they're just going to try to get the high probably. Wow, that wasn't a very nice move. Still really volatile, but just like volatility has now been sort of like compressed into a tighter range, which arguably to me is worse, right? Like this type of volatility with like decent rotations is like fine. Like I like that. That's how intraday traders like us make money. But tight compressed range where price is just like violently moving 10 or 15 points at a time, seemingly kind of randomly, like that's not ideal. It's also options expiration week, so price action is usually weird during option expiration week, and will options expirations will actually be on Friday, which will be here. I'll be here trading on stream again at 8:30. But typically options expiration, both the week of and particularly the day of, can trade really bizarrely. Really, really bad price action here over the last like 30 minutes to an hour. just chatting with one of our members right now and was talking about the book One Good Trade, which I don't know if any of you have read that, but it's a good read for intraday trading. They focus primarily more on stocks than they do on futures, but a lot of a lot of crossover and similarities in terms of like management and what it's like to be a trader and that environment. But they talk about in that book that their tech guy had a lot of extra keyboards on hand because traders would get so mad when they would get stopped out that they would smash keyboards and then immediately, then you can't do anything. And so then immediately yelling for the tech guy to bring them a new keyboard. I would say that's not a real like positive on emotional regulation there, but entertaining stories to read nevertheless. I have that on a shelf somewhere over here. One Good Trade. I have a bunch of trading books. That's probably one of my favorites though. They have another one. I can't remember what the other one is called by them. I'm trying to look at the titles. But the other one isn't as good. If you remember what that one's called, you can throw it in chat. I can't seem to locate it on my bookshelf. Something about the playbook or something like that. But it was like, I think kind of pitched as like different quote unquote like setups that they like to look for, but it wasn't super useful for me when I read it. Just kind of going down the rabbit hole looking at some of the other books that I have. Um, the Buy Side is really good. It's by Turney Duff. It's not really it's not really like a learning. I mean, it's probably things you can learn from it, but it's not really like a trading instructional book. It's a story about somebody working on Wall Street. It's a pretty wild story. I don't know how much I believe out of all of it, but it's an entertaining read for sure. So that one's good. And Thinking in Bets is really good. It's a little bit of a, I would say it's a little bit of a drier read, but it's more from like a poker perspective. It's about a woman that plays poker. But a lot of the a lot of the theories and risk management that happens during poker can be applied to markets. So with about 5 or 6 of you in here, now is the time to have the debate about whether trading is gambling or not. So throw that little fun hand grenade that people like to argue about in here. I personally think my own opinion is that yes, trading is gambling. Um, you are betting money on something is more likely to happen than the other thing is likely to happen. So to me, that's just the definition of gambling. Um, Even if because people will argue and be like, well, it's only gambling if you're just like getting in and don't have a system or don't have a target. And I'm like, that's not really the case either. Like people who play poker professional cards, people who are professional gamblers, very much like have a system, you know. They're not just betting random amounts on random hands of cards. So they're controlling for risk. They're betting heavier on hands that look better, and they're betting less on hands that are not as good. You're just playing on probabilities is all you're doing. And to me, that's what the market is doing. So to me, you can say that it's not gambling, but you know, I just would I would firmly argue, or I'd sort of like want you to argue about why it's not gambling. And like I don't have any, it's funny because like I'm not somebody who actually is that interested in, like I've only been to, I think I went to Vegas once, like shortly out of college. Like I had some coworkers that all went, and my boss at the time actually gave each of us like, I don't remember. I think he gave us like $2,000 to trade with. It was kind of crazy. There was like three of us. And his whole rule was that he got 25% of whatever we made, which seems like a really good idea, though I had never been to Vegas before. So I promptly blew that in like a day. So I'm not sure his investment really paid off there, though I kind of saw what he was doing. But honestly, like it was like okay, like it was more fun to hang out with my friends, and like push some buttons and see some lights and sounds and bells and whistles and get fed snacks and drinks and stuff. That was fun, but I didn't really like enjoy the I didn't really enjoy the environment, and I didn't really find much of a challenge in it. Granted, I wasn't playing cards. I was like playing slots, which you don't really have, like there's not really an edge in slots. But that's not my form of gambling, or like not my form of favorite form of taking risk. Same for sports betting. Like I'm a huge sports fan, and I have bet on exactly one sporting event my entire life. That's actually not true. When I was like a kid, there was like a local, my grandpa had a construction company and had there was like an electric company that he worked with, and they would do like a pool for like the NCAA men's tournament, and just like whoever had the best bracket. But it was like, I don't know, putting in $5 or something. So maybe the whole pool was like $60 or something like that. Um, and I bet on the Super Bowl one time because I was traveling at the time, and I'm here in Texas where sports betting isn't legal. But I was going through Vegas at the time. So I was like, oh, I'm a place that I can actually put this bet on. I bet like $20 on the Super Bowl and lost. So, but I just like, I don't like, it's not, one, I like sports so much that like, if I'm watching my sports team play, which is the Oklahoma State Cowboys, if they are like playing, I'm usually already stressed out. Adding money to that is not going to make things better. So I don't do that. And I just like, it's not as, markets fascinate me for how they move around and how they react to different prices and levels, and just kind of the general like technical part of markets really fascinates me. And I don't find that in sports betting. So it's also a very different crowd. Feels a little broy to me. Nice, Dylan. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, it also really doesn't matter what you call it. If you call it gambling or don't call it gambling, it still is what it is. I just think it's kind of a silly argument. But yeah, for me, it's like also environment. I also really love sports. I watch most sports. This is like my only like season right now is like a couple of months that I don't really watch sports because I'm not a huge baseball fan. But the sports season got to be a little longer this year because of the World Cup. Um, so it's been a good sports year. But I just like it so much that like if I inject money into that, I'm really afraid that I'm gonna like ruin something that I actually really like. I also think that like risk taking is really like psychologically challenging. Like I think it can make you tired. And so if I'm like trading all week long, and then, Saturday rolls around and then I'm betting on college football, and then, you know, Sunday rolls around and I'm betting on NFL football, like just kind of, you know, I think it's just like hard on the brain putting risk on all the time. The NASDAQ getting close, like 15 points away from this level that I'm kind of looking at here. It's like above this cluster of sellers here at 650. Once again, if you're just joining, uh, not looking to just like throw an offer on here, if it gets up here, I want to see if sellers are going to willing to step in at this price. Dylan, if you don't mind me asking, what is your, why do you like forex? Um, I've never traded forex. I know a lot of people do. I've also heard it's incredibly difficult. I think all trading is incredibly difficult, but I've heard forex in particular can be really difficult. Looking at the other indexes, let's see if they're all. So ES actually pulled back quite a bit. Now catching a bid again. The Dow pulled back quite a bit as well. Man, it's just a hot mess right now with what the indexes are doing. Like earlier, it was the Nasdaq going down and the other two going up, and now it's the Nasdaq going up and the other two going down. It's like pick a direction. Oh my God. Kind of have this like swarm of sellers here. It's like 650. You can see like different offers here. So there's like 30. They're kind of moving them around as I'm talking, but there's like 30, 10, 13, 11. So if it does set up short here, I just kind of like to talk about it ahead of time. I'm not sure that it will, because if they get it up this high, if they get it above this level and start using it for support, I think the chance of them getting it up close to the opening range high or the overnight high is pretty high, no pun intended. Um, but if it does set up short here, we start struggling with this 660 level or reject it a couple of times, I'll probably take a stab at it. My first target would be 600, would move stop to break even if we get there, and then ultimate target would probably be below this swing low, back to like the midpoint. So if I'm risking 30 points, I'd be looking for like 90-ish, which would be like 570-ish, which would be like back down to here, which I think is a very doable move. So it's to me just as important to look at where you want to be potentially getting involved as it is. Do you think that price can actually move that far in your favor for based on what you're risking? And since we've had a couple rotations down and interacted with the mid of the session and the previous day's close, I think that yes, I think we can. But this is a pretty sizable rally from the buyers off the lows, so not just gonna like step in front of this train on the way up. Here they come. Got all of those sellers. There's a few more stacking above at like 652-ish. A little bit of buyer chasing happening there. If you don't follow, or you're like new to the stream, um, I read buyer chasing as not bullish. So this will be first touch of this level. So I would need to see probably like probably at least a 20-point pullback off of here. So we just touched like 655-ish. So I'd be looking for like 630s, 635s. I want to see that there's some sellers that are willing, like you're seeing some sellers reload here with 32. So I want to see both passive sellers like these guys, and I need to see some active sellers that are willing to like sell this lower. Because if it's just passive, like buyers are eventually just probably going to eat through most of this and continue higher. But see if we get a decent rejection off of this. I wouldn't even mind this coming back to like 620. So if we can do 620 and then come back up into this area, I might look to get short. So that didn't pull back quite far enough for me. We got back to like 38, so really only like a 12-point pullback. I wanted to see like 25 to 30. So still just going to wait. Sellers are still stacking at this level though, so but stacking at a level doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be willing to initiate lower, but there's a lot of selling going on here. You can also see buyers are kind of slowing down as they're getting into this area as well. Got a little bit more of it. See if they get this other 53.5 person. So still looking for a little bit of a deeper pullback here. There's like a deeper pullback before and you see sellers pulled some of that liquidity, so that's not going to be helpful for my short idea. Also, the person that I learned to trade futures from used to say that like, if one side, if you get like a big sell off or a rally and whichever side sort of like gives back over half of that, that the chance of it taking back the whole thing starts to kind of increase exponentially. And, we're solidly above the mid of the session. We're probably into the almost like 75% retracement of this entire drop from the morning session. So buyers definitely in control right now, just leaning up against a level that I think could at least be temporary resistance. Sure. Dylan, I'm using Motive Wave as my platform. I'm using Motive Wave 6. The studies that you see on the chart are ScalperIQ studies. Um, those are, we have free trials available. There's a link in the description. Um, we also have a Discord that is free to join. We have a members only section, but we have a public section as well that you can go in and ask questions. So the candle coloring you're seeing is coming from one of our studies. This volume profile over here, while it's the same color, is just a native study from Motive Wave. That's not one of ours. Um, yeah, feel free to ask any questions that you have. Also, Dylan, if you're trading forex, while you're more than welcome to, hang out here and see what's going on. We love having new people. The Scalper IQ tools would not work on forex. They're those are also decentralized exchanges, and so our studies only work for futures because all of the delta and volume goes through one exchange, and so we're able to like make decisions and see the actual order flow. While for forex, it's a little trickier because it gets spread across a lot of different locations. So just want to flag that. So I do like that we are up here and this level is providing at least a little bit of resistance. I want to see like mid 20s. Like I want to see them retest this like mid 20s level, which they're trying to do right now. Come on, NQ, come back a little bit further. So if they test here and we get back up here, then I'll be looking for a position. Need to see them tag like 25-ish. Still not quite deep enough for me. So not quite deep enough. If they get it back up here, I'm not going to be looking for position until they touch 25. See a few new people joining. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hop in chat. Hit the like or subscribe button if you want to come hang out more. Currently potentially looking for a short here on the NASDAQ up here at this absorption level from yesterday, which is marked by the yellow line and yellow gradient up here. We just kind of rejected it, but we haven't pulled back that far off of it. So I'm waiting to see if there's some more sort of initiative selling coming off this level. And then if we get back up there, then I'll be interested in potentially fading it. But because this rally off the lows has been pretty strong, I don't want to just step in front of it. I need to see that sellers are not just willing to like sort of passively sit here as you see them stacking here. You see like a 15 order, a 10, 9. So there's a little bit of seller stacking going on here, and there's even more happening in the 60s. So I like that for a potential short idea, but I need to see that sellers are willing to like sell this down and not just like sit here on the offer and get filled. So far, I've only seen the first one and not the second one. There's a lot of offers here. This is very, very thick, all the way to 70. So buyers better really want it if they're going to try to push through this. And if you see my different colored um, offers here on the ask, so that's called MBO or market by order, which basically means that because this is a rhythmic feed, so I can see the entire order book, you can actually tell that like a large portion of say this 23 is one order, which is a little bit like can let you know that it's a bit more institutional or that it's like one large participant rather than like a cluster of sort of like, you know, 23 one lot orders, which is maybe more indicative of retail, but that's why there's different colors over here. Here they come. So just poking their head above this level here. They really didn't pull back far enough for me to want to be fading this. So I would probably let this fill. They are buying just about all of it. Let's see if they can get through this last cluster. Most of it. Didn't get all of it. So still kind of looking for the same sequence, which would be to come down to like 25-ish and then come back up to this level and then be interested in potential short. But right now it's hands off the wheel because if they get this much higher, it's gonna squeeze even more, I think. So they didn't get all that liquidity, just kind of slowly backed away from it. Very much like a V-shaped recovery, a few little consolidation areas in between, but yeah. So look, all of trading is difficult. So I don't know that there's one that's like, I don't know that forex is easier or harder, but from my own research, I will tell you that I think forex is considered just a bit trickier because a lot of it is really large entities that are trading those markets because it's currency, and so you're having countries and really really large participants that are trading. So once again, not going to like everybody's on their own journey. I traded an enormous number of products before I finally landed on futures, but the other upside to futures is that you can use prop firms. So you can keep your risk really low. Like the Lucid account that I'm trading right now, I want to say with a discount, it was like, they have like a recurring discount right now. I want to say it was like $70. And then you also get a free subscription to MotiveWave, the platform that I have up right now. So not our ScalperIQ studies, but the actual MotiveWave platform, which has the depth of market, has the volume profile, so that comes free with it, and it's not a recurring from Lucid. It's not a recurring monthly subscription. So you pay the one-time fee. It's a 50K account. So you have like, I think a $2,000 stop loss and a $3,000 profit target. Um, so in my opinion, I wish that those existed whenever I was first starting to trade because they didn't. So I ended up trading a lot of other things and losing a bunch of my own money as I tried to learn. But that's something that exists nowadays and is probably worth doing a little bit of research into. I don't think that most prop firms or any prop firms are really in the forex space, so that's a plus one for futures there. And because futures also have micro contracts, so you can trade really really small. So like every point on the Nasdaq on a micro contract is $2. So if you put one contract on and use like a 20-point stop, you're risking about $40 per trade. But given that I trade futures myself, I'm obviously biased. And when I first started, I started with penny stocks, like actual, like, can't even really hardly trade them anymore, but like pink sheet, like sub $1, sometimes sub penny stocks I traded for a while with like a group of friends. None of us knew what we were doing. Some of us did really well, at least temporarily. I did okay for a little while, but I had no risk management skills whatsoever. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm up so much money. Did I take any profit? No. Did I give it all back? Uh-huh. So that was a good learning experience. And then I switched from there over to starting to trade sort of like momentum stocks. So like whatever stocks happen to be up like 80 or 100% during the day and trading those. And I did that for a little bit, found a little bit of success here and there, but it was so stressful. Just like stocks getting halted. Every time you're trading a new stock, it's like has its own personality. a lot of those stocks that are, rallying 100 or 200% in a day are usually down a bunch and then rallying back up into places where a whole bunch of traders are trapped. And so they can have really, really nasty reversals. That was really hard to trade. And I just found myself like sitting in front of my computer, just like sweating, just like so stressed out. I was also trading my own personal account at the time, so that was an added level of stress. So I quit doing that, switched over to options for a little bit. Just all I did there was really just accelerate how fast I could lose money. Um, Also didn't really understand the product enough to be able to trade it properly, and finally settled on futures. I want to say in like 2021 or 2022, and got into a really good trading group from somebody who was a really good teacher. And I learned a lot about order flow and how futures markets work. And the best piece of advice that I got during that time was like, pick one thing. Doesn't matter what the one thing is. Pick one stock, pick one future, pick one forex ticker, whatever it is, and trade that one thing. Because the danger, particularly with trading stocks, is that there's just like so many different ones. And some days they're like ones that are quote in play, like they're actually have enough volume and volatility to move around. And then there's plenty of them. All right, so now that we tagged 25, I'm interested in shorting this if we get back up here to 55. Uh, so pick one thing, and like his analogy was like he traded ES primarily, and he was like, look, he's like, I know if ES is in a good mood, I know if ES is in a bad mood. He's like, I know if I should be touching it within like the first 30 to 45 minutes of the day, and it just saves you a bunch of money. But if you're trading like a new thing every single day, you know, you're just kind of wandering around in the dating pool of tickers, and it's hard to know how that, whatever it might be, might react. Give me just 1 second, guys. I'm going to go off camera for just a minute. The stream will still stay up, though. Well, that was a good level to be shorting at, but they just didn't give me, just didn't set up the way that I wanted. So we touched it the first time. I was looking uh for 25 to come back. They got back to like 30-ish, and then they pushed to new highs. So it just didn't set up quite right for me. So market saw the level that I wanted. So would have wanted it to kind of like, yeah, come back just a little further. Not really interested in buying anything here in the middle of the range. We've also just slowed down a ton. Like we've just slowed down a ton since the open. Like super volatile down, super volatile up, and then like for the last like hour and a half it's been a lot more compressed. I see a few new people popping in here. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. If you're just joining, was looking for a potential short up here, but it just didn't set up quite how I wanted it. We had a bunch of sellers stacking here, and buyers got into it a little bit, and then they just kind of knifed it down, so there really wasn't an opportunity for me to get in there. Would love for volume and volatility to pick back up again, but right now, not happening. Probably be here for like another like 45-ish minutes. I don't really trade the afternoon sessions. I traded it on Monday after I got off stream, and I've been waiting for a particular thing to set up. And it finally set up, but not until like 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon, and then I took 2 stops trying to trade it. So that's how well I trade afternoon sessions. If they can get price back up here, still potentially interested in a short, but I like it less now that we've pulled back this far. Like that was kind of the move. Like if I had been short at right at this level, which would have been like 655, 656-ish, you know, you got 60 points off of that. So I would have been looking for 90. Probably still would have been using a 30-point stop. Though I don't know that the 30-point stop is actually necessary anymore with how much we've slowed down. I was using it this morning because we were trading super, super fast and wild. So I sized down to 2 micros and moved my stop from 20 points to 30 points. But so if I had gotten short up here, I would still be holding. And if I was looking for 3-to-1, I would still be looking for like, yeah, like closer to this pivot here back to like the mid. So wouldn't have even like taken profit if I was in a short yet. Take a peek at the higher time frame. Those are some wild hourly candles. So super wild. You can see like this is the 7 a.m. Central candle, followed by the 8 a.m. Central candle, followed by the 9 a.m. And then now for the last two. So like the range on these, let's see if I hover, it should show me 245 points, 341 points, 248 points, and now 81 points and 79 points. So lots of compression happening after a really, really wild sort of like pre-market, and then RTH open was really wild. So I used to trade these like I would just kind of put an offer at, the level that I thought it was going to be. And in this case, like that would have worked. Like if I had been short at 55, my stop would have been at like 85. So would have worked that time. But what I found over time is that I just, I took a lot of stops where I just got flat out run over. I'd put my offer out there and price would just like go straight through me, because the market hasn't tested this level since early in the morning. So like you don't know, there's no way to know unless you watch it trade there a little bit if the market cares about your level. And so I've just sort of in the last probably 6 months to a year started to be like, all right, I'm more okay with just like not being in this trade than I am with getting just run over. So getting run over just I just found it for myself was just like demoralizing and made me lean towards getting a bit aggravated, a little more like closer to like tilty. And so now I'm just like, okay, I have my sequence of events. I said I wanted it to come back and test this level and then pop back up here and then be interested in shorting, but they didn't quite get back there. And then they made a new high and then they knifed it. And so I'm just not in it because of that. Also, if you're watching and you haven't hit the like button yet, we would greatly appreciate it. Helps the stream out, helps us continue to build this community. And also, if you're just joining, I'm up just a little bit on the session, basically up just a little better than 1R. We were short whenever the NASDAQ got below this imbalance from the overnight. So we got below it, and then couldn't get back above it. I got short here. It popped just a little bit, but my stop was all the way back up at like 15 or 13. Took profit here at the lows and held a runner thinking that we might get lower and took my runner in profit. So haven't touched it since then. How's everybody else doing today if you're trading? It's a really, really volatile open, at least here on the NASDAQ. I don't know what other things were like. Just kind of waiting to see if the NASDAQ will get back up to this level and struggle again. You still have a small cluster of sellers waiting here in the 70s, which is kind of where it got close to, but didn't quite get through. I don't really see, yeah, I guess they've reloaded 650 a little bit. So yeah, still interested in this level if they come back up there. I'm a little less interested in it since they already kind of flushed it, but we'll see how it trades when it gets there, if it gets there. Basically had all the excitement in the morning, and now we've really, really slowed down. I was just taking a peek at Bitcoin's move. Still hanging up near its highs. I'm gonna give this like another like 15-ish minutes to set up, and then if it doesn't, I'll probably just call it. Call it there, take a small green day. Still red on the week, not by a lot. Down like maybe 1.5 R on the week. Everybody's talking about Moderna on social. Ah, well, it's up 134% today, so that's why. It only has to 3x to get back to its high. 2022 highs, so that would have been like post-COVID, pre-rate hikes. It was like 497. So it's up 135% today, an intraday high of 163. So yeah, you still need it to do 100% about 2 more times in a row. And then you might be at break even if you bought over 400. I actually traded Moderna. I was still trading stocks at the time when it was rallying like crazy. And I took one really good lesson from trading that particular stock that I think still applies to futures. And so I was shorting it at some point intraday. And I was say we got up to like some kind of big level. I don't know, some whole number, call it like 300 or something like that. And like every time price got there, we sold off of it. And so one of the times we got up close to it, I got short. And like basically what I noticed and didn't trade properly, but what I noticed was there was some kind of iceberg, so like a hidden order with a bunch of shares waiting at 300. And so like every time price would touch there, like there'd be so much volume going off and then price wouldn't go anywhere. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to short that. And I did. And then when that price broke, like I got so much slippage, price just like obliterated my order. And so what I learned from that was if I see that happening even in futures markets now, I'll pretty much always wait for that iceberg to finish getting filled before I do anything with it. That one sticks in the memory. I don't remember how much money I lost. It wasn't like a ton of money, but it was enough that it hurt. Here comes some sellers getting this below 600. Annoyed that that didn't set up for me for shorting that up there. But I don't think this is going to get back to where I want to be shorting this in the next like 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm probably not going to take any more positions for this session. It'll just end up being a small winning day. Basically took that short in the morning, got one off at the lows, and then had the other one stopped in profit. And since then, this was the first place that I was interested in looking at a potential short, and it actually did reject this level, but um, yeah, I was looking for it to come back a little further and then get short on the retest, and it didn't come back far enough. And so when we're kind of in this like rallying uptrend and putting in higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, I wasn't going to short it without seeing a little bit of, like, in an ideal world, this would have sort of swept this little higher low here and come back up and let me short it then, but didn't set up that way. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it there. Thanks for joining. We'll be live again on Friday at 8:30. There's a link in the description. You can join our Discord. It's free to join if you have questions. Always happy to see new people in there, ask questions about order flow or anything else trading related. I have plenty of people, including myself, who will jump in and answer your questions. There's a new episode of Rewind the Tape out where we break down a trade from the live stream in greater detail so that you can learn about how to analyze order flow, analyze the depth of market. You can find those on our channel. There's an episode 1 and an episode 2. Feel free to check those out. Feel free to like and subscribe. So we'll see you guys again on Friday. Cheers, everyone.